Welcome to Your Wealthy Self with me, Regina Martinelli. This show is about money and a whole lot more. Here we focus on you being able to expand your capacity for money, success, and abundance, and inner wealth. We share tools, insights, and other people's journeys to help you have what's most important to you so you can be your wealthy self. And today is one of those days where we are going to talk about a whole lot more. My guest today is Sharon Lee Williams. Sharon Lee has her own talk show called OutRaised Voices on E360 TV as well, which delves into how unhealed scars from our childhood can develop into unhealed wounds into our adulthood, affecting our relationships, the goals we have for our life, and our self-worth. This is exactly what we talk about as well on this show. So I knew I wanted to talk with her and go deep into her story and what it took for her to overcome the challenges of being in foster care to create a life that she loves as a singer-songwriter, a performance coach, and starting her own agency and writing and directing and producing a musical. Wow, what a journey she has had. So let's chat with her now. Hello, Sharon Lee. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Regina, for having me, for seeing you. Yay. I'm so happy to be here.
I have been so excited about this conversation because a lot of times I talk about people. I mean, I've interviewed people, but I also talk about people from an example perspective of clients. But I actually get to talk to someone like you who has gone through the arc of like raising herself up, raising out her voice, and then helping others. So there is so much richness and wisdom and experience that I want to try to glean from you today. And just so our viewers know, this is going to be a two-part series because we could not fit all of what we wanted. We probably still can't in 2 episodes, but we're going to try to get as much as we can from Sharon. So today's the first episode, and be sure to watch next week when we do our second episode. So Sharon Lee, where would you like to start? Should we start with,
When you say that, the first thing that comes to mind is Drake's song, "Started from the Bottom, Now I'm Here." That's the first thing. I don't know if you know that song, but anyhow. So I'll start. I'll give you the beginning.
yeah,
Born and raised in Montreal, Canada, and taken, to a single mom, and then put into foster care. To be honest, I'm not quite sure, but I know I was a baby when I was put into care, baby 28 days old, something like that. And that's where I remained in care. And I didn't meet my birth mother until, I'm just moving ahead, I didn't meet my birth mother until I was about 30, 31, so, and my birth father. So it's all the steps in between that that I guess shaped my life, and it's been in care, in foster care, and I know people doing the show who have been in a number of houses, homes, you know, I or group homes. I was in, I would say, two and a half homes. One, one from a baby until 19 months until I was about 13 or so or 14. And then I was put into another home, or I took myself, I should say, I took myself out of that home and they was placed in another home as a teenager. So that's really the beginnings of um, who I am. And yeah.
that's wonderful. Thank you. And I wanted to pop off so they could see all of you because it's such a powerful picture to see you in your realness. Um, what are some of the challenges that you experience coming up through foster care and what you see from your guests on your show, what they commonly experience?
I'm going to say for me, and that's looking back because I'm still in the process of writing my book, but looking back, the emotional, it's always about emotional trauma. Even if you experience the physical trauma, when I speak to people who, yeah, and I had the beatings or whatever it was, but I will also say to people, even though I had those beatings. It was the emotional beatings when someone says to you, you're not valuable, although they didn't use those words. They would say your mother should have drowned you. That was one thing I heard, you know. And that of course leaves scars. Your mother should have drowned you. You're going to be nothing. You know, you're just a foster home. Blah blah blah. Um, uh, you know, or a kid would say, "You don't have a mother. You're a foster home kid." So these things kind of build. You don't know they're building up because you don't have that voice when you're young to understand that you're being traumatized when you go into school and the teacher says, "Oh, yeah, you live with so and so, but you're a foster child." And I had that happen on a couple of occasions, of course, and then the whole class turns around and looks at you, and you know, kind of see the giggles and all that stuff. But I, having gone through that, I didn't gone through like not feeling worthy again, not having the language, and taking that into be as a teenager, and just fighting the talk in my head. I'm not going to amount to anything. I'm not going to become anything. I'm only destined to be, you know, as someone said to me, you're either going to be a housekeeper or a prostitute. That was it. So now my own, I'm fighting the voices that I'm hearing from others and trying to um, be resilient or trying to show up in a different way as I become older, but taking some of that drama, some of that language into friendships and relationships, and I hear that from my guests who are older. Some of them are older, or 20-year-olds, or 30-year-olds, or 50-year-olds, or 60-year-olds get stuck in that trauma. And sometimes you just get triggered and you figure you're over it, but something just triggers you, and you have to remind yourself you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant to be here.
Thank you. Yes, it's so important. Those last words that you said too, that you are meant to be here. Like this is your place in this timeline on this earth now. That is so powerful. And the thing that you said about when someone says your mother should have drowned you, or there's another phrase that you said, and as a child, you don't know what that means, but it feels so horrific. And it also feels like as you've ended, as you were ending, like this is your time to be here. And yet this other person's saying it's not. And what we as children, when we don't have the capacities to deal with something as traumatic as that, or something as um, verbally abusive as that, even, physically abusive, we don't have the capacity. So we tend to make it mean something about ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we see like the world's not safe. I'm not good or worthy. The world's not safe. And then we start to shut down, quiet ourselves, and try to basically disappear so we're not a target. I mean, there's many different versions of this, but is this what you find as well?
Well, I found for myself that I became, as I'm saying that to you, I can uh, hear that being said to you, your mother should have drowned you. And I remember, I see myself as a little girl reflecting back. I was probably maybe 6, I don't know, but I heard it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember freezing. But also, I feel it made me do was become harder. I don't know about resilient, but started,
Mm-hmm.
you know how you build those scars. That's how I wrote that chapter, scar tissue. You start building scar tissue, right? Scar tissue, because people are saying stuff to you, and it's going in here, it's sinking in, but now I'm ready sometimes to fight. I had this gentle side on me, but I also had this side on me that was like just developing big scars, big scars. And what it also, this is interesting, that it also led me, because it came from a woman, it caused me to not trust women as much. And
Wow.
I'm only reflecting on this now. It caused me to not trust female friendships and
Mm.
all that as much. as I did men, and not
Mm,
necessarily a good way,
yeah.
but
That's incredible because it's that imprint and it's that experience. And you go, well, this is a authority woman, a woman in a position of authority. And saying this, I don't like this. I can't trust them. And that does change the trajectory of your life and the flavor of what your relationships look like.
yeah, 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 yeah. Because I think sometimes I hear this from others, but I think physical abuse is in some ways easier to let go of than verbal abuse.
Yeah.
Because you can get those physical scars and all that, and when you become older, it's like, yeah, I remember, but the emotional, the talk, the verbal abuse kind of hangs around. Uh, you know, it just hangs around like
Right.
mold.
Yes. And there's you can't point to it. Like if you have a bruise, a broken arm, or things that have physical evidence, because we're, you know, the society is so based on a lot of that. But when you have that emotional abuse, people can disregard it because you look like you're functioning because of your hardened scars or you're building the resilience and your willingness to be like, no. But there's a place where you look fine on the outside, so no one's reaching or noticing or trying to help you because the emotional scars are harder to see.
I didn't want anybody to help me. I didn't think I deserved help. I wasn't help me. That I'm just going to have to barrel through this. And I also talk about physical abuse to me, and I'm going to be doing a piece on that. But I was born in '49, so being 75 years old at that in those days, I even got the strap from the principal. So what is abuse and what is discipline? You can't do that now. So a parent who would, or a guardian who beat you, maybe I'm just thinking this now. Maybe that was not. I didn't see that as abuse. That's just okay. Must be other people getting this too. Except when her friends would come over and say, "Don't do that. Don't do that. She's just a little girl or something." Till I got to the point that I was bigger than her, and it got a little bit more intimidating to her. But that was the era
Mm,
of kids being disciplined in a very physical way. Most kids, I'm saying.
yeah. No, it's very true what you're saying because I remember when I was growing up, I had a family member who was boisterous and verbally abusive, and I'd be upset by it even years later because this person is just who this person is, and other family members would be like, "Oh, that's just who they are. Oh, that's just who they are," and I'm like, "That's enabling of the behavior." And if you refuse to see that as destructive and abuse, then we can never change the cycle. But for them it was like a way of like, if I step back and pretend like, oh, that's just who they are, or stay over here, then number one, I'm not a target, and number two, I don't have to do anything about it, and I don't have to deal with my own pain, which leaves the person who's being the target really alone.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think I'm also thinking from my generation, that was, you didn't talk about therapy. Nobody said when I was a child, "Oh, go see a therapist. Let's let's see a therapist and discuss what." No. So you're your own therapist. The guardian is their own therapist. Nobody's telling anybody any. It's just the way it is. Accept it. You're lucky to have a roof over your head. And I was, and I had food in my belly and all that. But it's a different time now that we can have the conversation about going to therapy, or what is this understanding in your household, having a conversation. There was no conversation. Nobody did that.
No, they didn't know
We don't.
how. Yeah.
Oh no, no. What therapy? What is that a word? That wasn't even. I don't even think that was in the dictionary. Therapy. So
Right.
that's how I feel I learned to just develop the big scar, and to just go it on my own and plow through. Not that I'm saying it's a horrible thing, or that I ended up. I obviously uh, um, overcame certain things, but uh, I've said to people, I think I would have progressed so much quicker and understand myself if I had been in therapy,
Yeah.
at a young age, and someone said, "Hey, this is not about you. This is about them," as opposed to taking everything somebody said as personal. And so people would see me outside in the world, and I'm gregarious, and doing my fashion and singing on stage, and everybody. Somebody would say, I'd say to people, I'm actually quite shy. And somebody would say, "Oh, come on, come on." But I was I didn't even believe I was a good singer.
Yeah.
That's how I didn't understand why people hired me all the time. And
Mm.
I did a lot of, jingles, commercials, and voiceover or on camera. I didn't understand. Or maybe they're hiring me because I don't know. I don't know. Not because I'm talented. They don't
Right.
want to take me to Broadway because I'm talented. I don't know what they want.
Well, and it's interesting because you could see someone of your talent and magnitude of skill, how she would, as a young girl, get that, considering that when someone says, well, you're lucky you have a roof over your head, you're lucky that you have someone who's giving you food, like get over the other stuff. There's a place where we start to get conditioned to get along with the bare minimum and not give ourselves more credit or give ourselves more abundance or give ourselves more worth. And it's like, well, I don't know why they're hiring me, because it's like I'm still down here. I'm just, at this minimal level, because people said you should be happy that you're there. And it's, to your point, it's a lot of how the culture was. And we're still, like you said, 75 years later, we're still working through those conversations. There's still people who are, being conditioned into that. And there's still people who are, there's tools, but you have to now go search them. It's not like every household is being like, let's work on how I make you feel,
Yeah.
unworthy.
Right? I don't know how many parents are going around saying, well, how is that for you at school? How is that working for you? How do you feel? I mean, even though we have these tools, that's kind of a different conversation. I see it with my nieces and my niece and all that, how she handles the conversation with her children, which is beautiful. But I don't know how many people are out there, but doing that and having the conversation. And then last night I had a conversation with another friend of mine, a guy he's about 40, and he was saying, okay, maybe we've gone too far to one side, and we hippies said, okay, we don't. I was sort of an upscale hippie, but I was a hippie, okay. But but have we gone too far to the other side? Now we have teachers who um, you can't get teachers are frightened of students as opposed to my culture where we were all scared of the teachers. I don't agree with that either, but there's the middle ground is I don't know where the middle ground is, and parents can't discipline their children. I do remember when my son came home. I think he was, I don't know how old he was. Yeah, he came home. They had a policeman at school, and my son's going to be 37. They had a policeman at school, and he came home and he said, "Mommy, you can't hit me, or I'll call the police." Not that he was abused, but he had to voice that. He knew that. Or
Yeah.
I'll call the police. So I mean, it's just different. It's just I don't know.
Great. So, Sharon Lee, based on your experience and what you've come through, the resilience you've created, and from standing on the scars and all of that, and helping yourself get the healing when you could, what would you say? What kind of advice would you give to someone who is feeling in that place and they want to raise their voice, but they're feeling a bit frozen or a bit stuck?
Um, I would when I talk about therapy, if you can find someone to talk to, whether it's a coach, whether it's a friend, you have to voice that. You have to, somebody you trust, somebody who's there to listen to you. I don't know if it's ministers. I really don't know, but to let it out. Don't keep it in. That that's this because stuckness is stuck in
Yeah.
there. You have to move it. So finding somebody that you can really trust and who you feel has your back or can listen to you, and I think that's the first step. And then also do a lot of reading. I don't know.
Mm.
I went through self education, and that when I had my son to start getting into all the understanding a little bit of psychology and what I didn't know and why was I doing this. Not to say that I became this perfect person, and not to say anybody is looking for that for themselves, but just to allow your voice to be free and be heard. You have to do your own um, your own self education as well as letting the voice out. Like we advocate for ourselves in health now because we don't have enough doctors. You have to figure out. Let's say if a doctor says this, but you check it out. Check it out. Maybe get a second opinion. You know, check it. We do that for our health, so we have to do that for our mental health as well.
Yeah. No, that's so great. And we're also fortunate to be in a time where there's a ton of podcasts, online books. There are, TED Talks. There's library. There's all these resources. But to your point, you've got to be the one to go reach for it and go look for it. And maybe for some people, the safest place to go is to read or is to watch a podcast or what it may be, because they can do it quietly and kind of confidentially as they start to build their confidence and resilience.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, that was my start off point. Just do a comp and don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Just start reading, and then I started with groups. I went to groups where people were reaching out as well, and I went, "Oh, okay, this is not a strange thing. People, there are groups out there now. It's acceptable, so or easier to find, and like you think, but there's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of this, but I would say even with that also do your own research because not everything out there is, I don't know what's the word I have for it, but not everything out there will feed your soul, I guess, or feed your mind. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's wonderful advice, because there are a lot of people and communities out there that are trying to vie for our attention in this healthy, try to heal or whatever that is their message. And you need to check with yourself to see if it feels
yeah,
good and not
yes,
do it from a place of like, oh, I need to have this, I need to have this, versus like, oh, this feels good. I'm going to make a really informed choice with how my body feels about it,
yeah,
versus the fear running and trying to quelch the fear, because
yeah,
that's the wrong type of marketing. That's not,
yeah.
I just find for me, it doesn't always go well when I go to that place.
Yeah, it doesn't always go well, and just crossing over to that, even trusting your gut. I'm just going to switch a little bit here. Trusting your gut is really important because I know you talk about money mindset,
Mhm.
and I just wanted to say how I got to my first buying my first house was that I was standing in a store, a high fashion store in Toronto, and I used to love to buy clothes, and I had a great job and being in show business, did very well. And I was buying clothes, and I'm standing in the store, and I was looking at this doggone jacket from some doggone designer, and it was probably like $2,000, which was a lot then. It's a lot now, but you put down
Yeah.
you could put down some money, pay it off, whatever the heck it was. And I remember looking at this and telling myself, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And that was kind of like my head going, "What are you doing when you get older? What you're going to be on your own." The other voice of you're going to be on your own. You probably won't have a husband. Da 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 da. So you better fend for yourself. Put
Yeah.
your money somewhere because now I'm 31 and there's no husband. The white picket fence and the dog and the two children haven't come. You got to get up and figure it out. buy a house that would be something valuable, something that you own, that you know, that was
That's
nuts.
amazing. Yeah, that's amazing because to your point, no one's coming to save you, right?
Well, yeah,
No.
thank you. Yeah.
So, Sharon Lee, I could talk with you for hours, and we are going to carry on this conversation over into next week. So make sure everyone that you tune in next week as we continue this inspiring conversation. We're going to get even a little deeper. And no matter what the challenges you are facing or learning how someone like Sharon Lee has overcome her own helps us all in our way forward. Thank you so much, Sharon Lee, for coming. If you'd like to find out more about Sharon Lee or engage with her, she is on E360 TV at OutRaised Voices, and she also has a website, SharonLeeWilliams.ca. And if you got anything from today's show, please share it. And please send your questions to your wealthy self at E360 TV Live. I love and adore you. You are an incredibly beautiful and precious being, and your journey is worth walking.